People are voting with their stomachs, meaning they're going to the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago.
One noteworthy moment from President Trump's lengthy press conference at Mar-a-Lago had to do with his perspective on what he thinks this election is really ultimately going to be about. And it's quite revealing. Let's take a look.
The polls have suggested. There are some polls that say we're going to win in a landslide. People are voting with their stomachs, meaning they're going to the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago. Look at what's happened to energy. Look at what's happened not only to their cars, where gasoline's gone from $1.87, $1.87, and we had moments when it was below that, but it's gone from $1.87 to $5, $6, and $7. And they take the strategic national reserves and they take it out, even though it's peanuts compared, it doesn't last long. But they're virtually empty now. We've never had it this low. And he's using that to keep the gasoline prices as low as possible. He's sucked all of the oil out, essentially the gasoline, to keep the price down a little bit, and it's had very little impact. But you know what? We have no strategic national reserves now. He's emptied it. It's almost empty. It's never been this low. And I had it at a good level, and I would have had it more if the Democrats would have approved the deal. You know, I had a deal to buy it at $22 a barrel. And now it's going to be close to 100 pretty soon, my opinion. And the Democrats didn't want to do that, but we bought a lot anyway. And we had it pretty good. And what they've done to the national reserves, the strategic national reserves, is, as you know very well, because you cover it, but what they've done is incredible. They've just, for the sake of getting some votes, for the sake of having gasoline, you know, that's meant for wars. It's meant for like tragedy. It's not meant to keep a gasoline price down so that somebody can vote for Biden, or in this case, Kamala, who, by the way, is worse than Biden. And she's actually not as smart. Okay? She's actually not as smart. That's hard to believe, isn't it?
All right, Akash, up until that last little swipe at Kamala, I was thinking you could have written this moment for Donald Trump. That's got to be exactly what you think he's got to hammer home at debates, at speeches, every opportunity.
There is no question about it. That was rock solid on energy policy, right? The strategic production reserve stuff, it is so amazing. It's like hard to believe how poorly the administration has handled this. It's exactly what President Trump said. I would add one more point, right? President Biden did all this stuff for green energy, trillions of dollars, electric vehicle policies, and all this other stuff. All the while, he's drawing down the strategic production reserve and begging Venezuela and Iran to increase natural gas production. So he has done actually nothing to move us away from fossil fuels, if that was your goal. All he did is take it out of the strategic preserve and ask countries that do it more dirty and more dangerously than we do to increase their production. And so President Biden has been a complete failure on energy policy. And I think the latter part of what President Trump was talking about right there is really vital to understand, given the state of the world today. Because of President Biden's foreign policy failures, the world is much more volatile and much more unsafe than it was a few years ago. The strategic production reserve is for exactly that scenario of wartime, of sort of global calamity. We're in a very treacherous situation that, should things really hit the fan, we do not have enough reserves in there, because the strategic preserve is meant for instances like that. It's not meant to keep your poll numbers high because you let gas prices get too high because of your bad energy policy. I think President Trump has got to hammer that message home over and over again, particularly in Pennsylvania.
Well, and add to that the fact that three of the countries who benefit the most from higher global energy prices are Russia. It's funding their war on Ukraine. Iran, it's funding their war through proxies all through the Middle East. And it's Venezuela, funding the dictator Maduro to hold on to power. Elaine, though, I do love the framing that people are voting with their stomachs. You know, when the economy is bad, people make choices about whether they should buy a new car or maybe not go on that vacation. People are literally having to make choices at the grocery store because it's so bad right now.
Yeah, so there's a nifty little thing going around TikTok right now. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not a fan of TikTok. But of course, like most people's children, both my kids are, and my daughter is in her junior year in college. and living on a budget. And so what she told me is going around on TikTok and everybody is doing is they're going back to their their Walmart and grocery store receipts online, and they're hitting buy again from their receipts from 2021, and they're hitting buy again. And when they do that, it takes the exact same products, you know, whether you bought 20 products or 40 products and what those prices are, and you see what you paid in 2021, and then you look at what you would pay in 2024. And so you're seeing prices. She did it herself, and she said, oh my gosh, I paid $127 for this same groceries in 2021. And if I bought it today, it would be $250. I mean, so they are seeing in real time and real numbers exactly what's happening. Nobody can gaslight that. Nobody can wallpaper over that. People are not able to make ends meet.
Yeah, the Trump people should actually do an ad focused exactly on that. Although, are you telling the truth, Elaine? Haven't I seen you doing one of those viral renegade dances on TikTok? I'm sure I have.
Don't tell anybody.
I thought so. Chris, voting with your stomachs. I mean, Trump has a way with words, and this gets right to the heart of the issue.
It's funny. I was at the gas pump just yesterday, and I don't know if you can see this, but I took a picture of it. This was stuck on my light there.
I can fix that. That's great. That's new. I haven't seen those.
So for people that can't see it, it was a sticker on the gas pump right next to the price of the gas, and it's Trump pointing, and it says, "I can fix that." That is a related sticker. When Biden had just won election, you might have seen those popping up on pumps around town that said, "I did that." When prices started to go ever higher. People feel that more than anything else. He's exactly right to hammer. Akash is exactly right. The one reality that you cannot escape is that, you know, to fill my truck, I'm over $100. And by the way, I know I'm getting away cheap with where I am. Groceries, same deal. I just had a story this week on the show that said back to school time, and there are families deciding whether they're going to buy groceries or buy back to school items. That is something Kamala Harris cannot escape. And I don't know if everyone's going to necessarily be vocal, particularly moms who are doing a lot of that purchasing. I get this sense, maybe I'm overly optimistic, there will be a lot of people that know what is real, may not feel inclined to be honest that they're about to do it, but know something has to change, and they'll go quietly cast their vote for Donald Trump, but never admit it. That shy Trump voter that we once talked about,
yes,
I think they've been beaten into submission now. That's yeah. I'm guessing, but I think that could be real.
You know, you're right that Kamala Harris can't escape it, but it's even stranger. She's actually sort of campaigning against it. Take a look at this clip from her rally in Wisconsin.
As while our economy is doing well by many measures, prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. You know, when I was Attorney General, I went after price-fixing schemes. And when I am president, it will be a day one priority to fight to bring down prices. I will take on big corporations that engage in illegal price gouging. I will take on corporate landlords that unfairly raise rents on working families. I will take on big pharma and cap the cost of prescription drugs for all Americans.
All right, so Akash, help me out here. First of all, what's stopping her from doing those things right now? She's acting like Joe Biden is the problem because he's not doing those things. All right, set that aside for a second. That's why prices are too high, because corporations are price gouging, because of big pharma, because of corporate landlords. That's not why we've got $5 dozen eggs, Akash. It's government policy that's the problem.
There's no question about it. And they have this like antitrust enforcement thing because they think there's collusion among grocery stores. There are so many different brands of grocery stores in this country, so many different brands of food inside the grocery store. This whole idea that like greedflation is driving the price of high groceries and food is so insane. AFP actually just put out a report debunking this. This is a claim being pushed by Bob Casey, Democrat senator of Pennsylvania. He's the leading cheerleader for this, and it is complete BS, Larry. This is complete BS that corporations are the reasons for high food prices. I mean, were corporations this wonderful philanthropic entity when food prices were low 3 years ago before the inflation crisis? I didn't hear the Democrats say a word about that at the time. They're gaslighting us, they're lying to us, and they're deflecting from their own track record, which is that they spent $6 trillion of additional funds when they had full control and tens of thousands of pages of regulations. Those are the things driving up food prices gas prices, energy prices, healthcare prices, home prices, and everything else under the sun. And there's no one else to blame other than President Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democrats in Congress who voted for it.
Yeah, and Elaine, as a TikTok influencer, of course, you know the meme of the guy in the hot dog suit who's saying, we're trying to find the guy who did this. She's the one who did this. She literally cast the vote that drove prices high, and now she's campaigning saying prices are too high.
She literally, and her team literally thinks that their voters are stupid. That's the only thing I can conclude, is that they have zero respect for their voters if they think they're that stupid, that they think this is all about corporate greed and nothing about inflation. I mean, there's a cost of living crisis out there, and it's not about corporate greed. You cannot continue to operate in an environment as a business where you're paying more for your goods and services and not pass those prices on to consumers. That is happening as a result of bad government policy. And if we have another Harris administration, we're going to see the same kind of double down on reckless government spending and an even bigger war on our domestic energy production. And that is going to continue to drive the cost of everything higher.
Yeah, their economic policy is more of the same, if not much more of the same. But Chris, there was something kind of dark that I noticed in this, and maybe you picked up on it too. I've never heard this before, that inflation's bad, prices are too high, and I'm going to use my power in the executive branch to prosecute companies to fix it. She talks about the power of prosecution a lot. I understand she was a DA and then an attorney general, but there's something unnerving hearing somebody who wants the most power you can have in an executive role in this country and talk about her constantly flexing and using that power to harm people she thinks are doing something wrong.
Yeah, call up your neighborhood Catholics and see what they have to say about that under Merrick Garland right now, or maybe anybody who was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. They love the power of lawfare. We've seen it play out. You're exactly right to bring it up. I know Trump won't whine about that. That's the one thing he won't really talk about much, but it is the thing that I think they want away from as fast as possible, because it is the thing that I think makes him maybe the most compelling to the American citizen right now. Donald Trump himself is the personification of the victimization of this government. So many of us, for various reasons, whether it's being rousted out of our homes for being a pro-life protester or just in Washington on January 6th, or the victims of inflation and gas prices at the grocery store and the gas pump, or whether it's our firearms, or whether it's the IRS, or whether it's being spied on by the FBI at school board meetings. We have been getting the back of the hand of this government as the citizenry for some time now. She's the embodiment of it, and Donald Trump is the embodiment of those of us who feel like we're last place, and we're, Joe Biden said it. You want to take on the government, you're going to need a fighter jet.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump nearly being killed, and the lawfare he's faced, his home raided, I kind of wish he'd lean into that a little bit, because I actually think that makes him a pretty sympathetic figure with a lot of voters who feel equally abused.
Yeah, well said. And I think that you might say it is pretty remarkable, if I could, on this Friday, the 9th day of August, as we're doing the Larry Roundtable, that it's been just 4 weeks from tomorrow that we had an assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. And now it seems like so many in the media are not paying much attention to it at all. It sort of seems like a big story still. We're still learning a lot more about that. And you're right, Chris. I think that there is an unnerving feeling in this country. And that statement from Kamala Harris, that was also a message to corporations. It was a message to CEOs. You better get on my good side. You better be a part of what I'm doing here if you don't want me coming after you. It's an insidious use of power and projection of power. And, well, it kind of goes against what we the people have ever wanted.